Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster. I'm your host, Shawn Eastridge. What's that, you say? You're not Lee Hutchison, and you're right. I'm very sorry, first and foremost, that I'm the first voice you have to hear. But hey, look, who's that? Lee Hutchison is here to join us.
Hey, Shawn, how are you?
Doing well, Lee. And not only that, we have Matt Hansen, the resident Marvel expert of the Nerd Party. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And if you haven't guessed already by the title of this episode, we are going to be talking all things Black Panther. It's just been released. People are going nuts for this movie. I think at this point in time, it may be the highest rated superhero film of all time on Rotten Tomatoes. It is. So that is the truth. It's got like a 97, 98%. I think it's got like an 88 on Metacritic, which is like usually reserved for things like if it's directed by Fellini or Ingmar Bergman. But now Black Panther has joined the ranks of the classics.
So officially it has beaten, because up to this point on Rotten Tomatoes at least, The Dark Knight and Iron Man were both tied for highest at 94%. This is currently sitting at a 97.
Right. So Black Panther is officially that. So, and it's about to not only break that record, but it's about to break box office records worldwide. I don't know if anyone has seen any stats come in. I know it was gunning for a 200 million opening weekend domestically.
So what it is that I haven't seen it updated this morning, and it usually won't update until 8 or 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is an hour behind me at this point. But yesterday it was looking at 180 plus for the 3-day, and it's actually a holiday weekend here in America. So
that's right.
So the 200 million plus number that you're hearing is the one that they're projecting for the 4-day weekend.
So this is just a hit all around the board, and we're gonna. I know you're desperate to hear three white men's opinions about Black Panther.
I think
we're gonna get right into it.
I think we should call this episode "Whitey Reviews Black Panther."
That's what the world wants to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to a movie celebrating Black culture and just kind of pushing that to the forefront, the first thing anyone on the internet wants to do is check out three pasty white guys' opinions about it.
Okay.
And that's why we're here. That's why the Nerd Party is here in general.
It's a little maybe it's a little more acceptable. I'm technically Hispanic, and I am, and LGBT. So I am two minorities. I just happen to not be the minority that's the focus of this movie.
That's okay, but by being minorities, Matt, your opinion automatically matters more. And Lee, do you have any minority or social group that you subscribe to?
One of the few white people in the movie is Martin Freeman, a fellow Brit. So I feel
so
I've
Andy
got
Serkis.
And Andy Serkis
Andy
too,
Serkis.
yeah. So the two white people in this movie, I share, a country with. So, and I've met Andy Serkis once before. So, if I was American, I would have voted for Obama 3 times. So, I feel like I can make a remark or two.
So,
and as for me,
what we're saying, Sean, is that you have no reason to be here.
I have no reason. I'll second what Lee said. I would vote for Obama a 3rd time. I like the hip hop music. I enjoy the Kendrick Lamar.
We got to talk about the soundtrack for this movie.
Oh, we do. We should. We honestly should. So, yeah, but basically what we're saying is Matt and Lee have some level of credibility. I have nothing. So if there's any opinion that you don't listen to, it should probably be mine. But there are plenty of opinions here on the Nerd Party, and we welcome you to follow the Nerd Party at Join Nerd Party. And you can like the Facebook page on it's facebook.com, the Nerd Party. And then also, if you're listening to us on iTunes, does Stitcher have rating systems? I'm sure if they don't, you should write in, make Stitcher have a rating system, give us 5-star ratings, and check out all the great shows on the Nerd Party, because there are so many, especially this show called Missing Frames, which I am ever so fond of, where this wonderful host just gets these people on to watch movies they've never seen before, and it's great. It's my personal favorite, I think. I'm not biased at all.
No.
Exactly. And biased, it's okay to be biased. That's never a bad thing.
Exactly. So let's just jump right into Black Panther then. So Black Panther, I'll be honest, I have not been the hugest fan. I've never really read the comics So I don't know much about this character. This really my introduction to Black Panther was Captain America: Civil War, and of course I'd heard of him, but I was wondering, Matt. I guess we'll start with you, Matt. Have you read any of the Black Panther comics? Are you a fan going into this, or where are you at with this?
See, here's the thing: is I'm the resident Marvel expert, but I'm the Marvel expert when it comes to the movies. My dad is much more the comic book reader, but I actually got introduced to Black Panther a little bit earlier than Civil War. I mean, of course, my introduction to this iteration was Civil War, as it was for everybody. But I actually remember seeing Black Panther and wanting to know more about him because I watched. You guys remember the? It was about 10 years ago at this point. The Avengers: Earth Mightiest Heroes cartoon. He was he was a regular mainstay on that show, and I was heavily into that show after the Avengers 1 came out, and so I met him technically through there.
Lee, what about you?
Yeah, I've never been a huge reader of Marvel comics. I've been more of a DC and reader, but then when I say DC reader, I really mean anything that's got Batman in it. So my knowledge of Black Panther was pretty limited. You could have put it on the back of a cigarette packet. And my main real introduction to him as a character was really kind of Civil War. Obviously, I was aware of him. I knew the backstory, Wakanda, things like that. But the Marvel Cinematic Universe was my real main introduction to this sort of one of the maybe lesser known characters in the pantheon of Marvel characters. So yeah, it was a quite an exciting introduction then for me.
Yeah, and Civil War, I love that movie on its own terms, but one of the most exciting things about it, I think, was the introduction of not just Black Panther, but Spider-Man as well, but they were two of the film's highlights. So it was and then you got that teaser at the end where they have Wakanda and the Winter Soldier in Wakanda, and you're kind of like, oh, I can't wait to see. And at that point, I think we knew Ryan Coogler was attached to direct. And,
yes, we knew that. The beginning of that year, 2016, I think he was announced in January. And I was super excited.
Yeah. So where do we all stand now that we've talked a little bit about Black Panther and how little we know about Black Panther? How do we all feel about Ryan Coogler? I mean, as a film fan, I've never seen Fruitvale Station, which I'm still kicking myself over, and I hope to do a missing frames of that at some point. But I did see Creed, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I'm a big Rocky fan. And I was really nervous hearing about the fact I was like, oh, God, they're doing another one. And then I realized Ryan Coogler was involved, and I'd heard a lot about Fruitvale Station and how like really beautiful it was. And I was like, well, that's at least that is an interesting angle. And I read all these great stories about how he basically approached Sylvester Stallone and was like, I really want to make a Rocky movie. And Stallone was kind of like, who are you? Huh? Yeah. And then he eventually saw Fruitvale Station and was like, whoa, get this guy on the phone. Let's make it happen. But I was a big Creed fan. I love Creed. I think it was my number 2 movie of 2015. And I love it to this day. But I'm wondering, Lee, have you seen Ryan Coogler's stuff, and where do you sit as far as a fan of his stuff?
Yeah, I've seen Fruitvale Station. I actually got a bit of a network premiere last week on one of the cable channels here, and like you, I'd seen Creed and thought I was quite cynical about it. You know, another Rocky. Even though Rocky Balboa, I think that was the one where he came back and it was all about the computer and such like. I was quite impressed with that one. But then again, you always think, well, that one was a success, but don't maybe do another one. And then when they were making this Creed movie, I thought, well, of course it is the son of a rival. And then when I went to see the movie, I was just absolutely blown away. I thought it was fantastic. The cast, the direction, the way the story went, it was so emotional. It wasn't what I would have expected from a movie like that at all. So I was really impressed. And then as soon as he was linked with Black Panther, it was almost one of these movies you thought he's hit the big time and you couldn't begrudge him his success.
Yeah, exactly. And what about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think I'll have to join you on that missing frames because I still haven't seen Fruitvale Station and I'm kicking myself. But I did see Creed and I can't remember where it landed on my top 5 of that year, 2015. But I remember it being in my top 5 and just it's still... It's neck and neck with that original Rocky movie is my favorite of that franchise.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, definitely.
I mean, God love him. but the man, Ryan Coogler, managed to get an Oscar-winning performance out of Sylvester Stallone. Or what should have been. I think Stallone was robbed that year.
Yeah.
But that aside, when I heard that he was possibly going to be attached to Black Panther, because I follow the comic book stuff, and I hear when people are in talks and everything. And I remember him hearing his announcement as, like, being in talks, quote unquote. And I just remember, like, praying, like, please let this man get Black Panther. And then when he did, it was really, really exciting. So I was going in as a fan of not only the universe, but as a fan of the director.
Yeah, and it's funny, just looking at the history of this film's, just trying to get it into production, because Wesley Snipes was attached at one point. I think they were talking to John Singleton to direct, and John Singleton, he did Boys in the Hood, and then
isn't he the one who also did Too Fast, Too Furious?
Yes, which we should be acknowledging as his masterpiece. And we also had, once the Marvel Cinematic Universe kicked off and they were starting to look for directors for this movie, Ryan Coogler was obviously in the conversation, but also Ava DuVernay was in the conversation. Who
just happens to be like really great friends with Ryan Coogler and is still doing directing for Disney because her film comes out next month.
Exactly. So we've got A Wrinkle in Time. She kind of went to that instead, but it's so interesting to look at how long this movie has kind of been in the works. And I mean, if Wesley Snipes had gotten the part, he would have basically held the monopoly on black superheroes.
You have to wonder if that's why he was considered the part, is because, well, he played a black superhero before, so why not just offer it to him?
I know it would have. I mean, as much as I think we all wish we lived in a world where Wesley Snipes not only plays every black superhero but every superhero. I think there is a need for some more variety.
I mean, I'd watch a Wesley Snipes' Black Widow movie.
That's what I think. You heard it here first, folks. This has to happen, and we're gonna make it happen. Get out of here, Scarlett. Nobody likes you. Wesley Snipes is the way of the future. But so we kind of all had. I think we all saw this movie at different times, and I think we should go in backwards order from most recent first viewing to least recent first viewing. And Matt, when did you see Black Panther? Did you go to the Thursday night screening? Did you see it over the weekend? What was your experience? How many times have you seen it? And what just give us a little bit of some background on your experience watching the film.
Yeah, because I don't live internationally, and I haven't slept with anyone who's worked on the movie like Shawn has.
All the time.
Yeah, I'm the most recent person to see it. I actually saw this, usually I try to go on Thursday nights because I'm such a fan, but I'm now in law school and working, so I went Friday night with a bunch of people from law school, sold out theater, really enthusiastic audience, so that was really cool. And then I knew that this show was coming up today, so I saw it again last night at 10 o'clock, which is probably a mistake considering it's 8 o'clock now, but I wanted to see it again because I always like seeing when I first see a new movie that I'm going to review. I like to see it twice just to see if the feeling still stays the same or it gets better or whatever. But I saw it again last night. Again, this film is doing gangbusters in America, so it's sold out. Equally as enthusiastic audience.
That's awesome. And I mean, yeah, it's with big movies like this where you just have tons of anticipation for it, and it's really these big franchise movies, I feel like a lot of the times you have to see it a second time to really kind of balance. You're kind of like the first time, for me at least, when I see a movie I'm really looking forward to, a lot of times the first screening is too overwhelming for me to have a good grasp of how I really feel, and it's always good to get a second screening in there.
Which,
but Lee, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, I don't know how I'm going to deal with Infinity War because I think I'll just be a quivering mess.
But Lee, so what was your experience? When did you see Black Panther? How many times have you seen it? And what was the experience like? Because I know it's over here. It's been pretty crazy. Like there has been the demographic it's been reaching to has been enthusiastic about this film, and as Matt was saying,
I mean, it's the second only Marvel Cinematic Universe film besides the original Avengers to get the A+ cinema score, which is really, in terms of audience metrics, the only thing that's quote-unquote scientifically accurate, because they only poll people... No, I'm serious. They only poll people who have actually seen the film coming out of the film, and they only poll you once. So,
and they're general audiences, too. It's not like snobby film people like us or people who are biased in favor. It's just general
So, I mean,
people.
whatever things we have to say... This is definitely, it's undeniable. It struck a chord not just with the African American demographic, but at least American moviegoers in general.
Right. So, Lee, did you have like a similar experience to Matt? Was it like a crazy, like were people really into it, or what was your experience like?
Well, I feel like I've set myself up for a fall here because I've only watched it one time compared to you guys. I know the
get
shock,
him out of
so
here.
discount all my opinions and thoughts further ahead. I went to see it on Tuesday, which was its opening night here in the UK. It's the school holidays here, so we always get Marvel movies a good few days early here. So I went along to see it, and I saw it as part of a double bill with 50 Shades Free, so I think my cinema experience is unique in that respect. I went to see 50 Shades Free with my girlfriend, and then we met with some of my friends who I've gone to see nearly every Marvel movie with, and like
So
50
this was
Shades
a palate cleanser.
yeah, 50 Shades Free was pretty much an empty cinema. It was terrible. It wasn't as good as the previous two. And then we went into Black Panther, first evening screening, and it was absolutely packed. You couldn't really get in much in the way of space. All the other screens were close to sellouts or sellouts already. And yeah, it was a hugely popular viewing kind of experience for folks. So yeah, I went in, I've been quite relaxed about it compared to some people. The trailers themselves never really kind of pushed my button perhaps, and I think it's more so in the fact that we're kind of getting a lot of the Oscar movies just now, so things like Shape of the Water are coming out, Lady Bird, a lot of these movies that I'm really excited to see, and so my hype for Black Panther was a bit more reserved than it was for some of these movies. So I went in kind of not too fussed either way of the movie. I wasn't bouncing from the ceiling, and I wasn't like, oh, yeah, I'll go see this. I was genuinely looking forward to it.
Well, that is fantastic, and I first of all, my first viewing of 50 Shades Freed was,
be careful to be standing
marvelous.
by, listeners, to scrape up some names that are going to be about to drop here.
So 50 Shades Free, my favorite film of 2018. Is that what we're talking? Oh, Black Panther, sorry. So Black Panther, well, hold on to your butts, kids, because I've got both these people beat. So I saw Black Panther. I have the great advantage of living in Atlanta, where a lot of these Marvel movies are shooting, and
pretty much all of them now.
Yeah, now all of them. They were shooting Infinity War right outside my office.
I know
in
you
downtown
and Lee.
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
we've
we
got
get
you
all the
beat there.
villains.
When we're watching Infinity War, I imagine our screenings will be people around us nudging someone, going, "Hey, is that shop from downtown?" Or "Is that my house in the background?" Or "Is that me just walking past Black Panther in the background?"
And the answer to all of the above is yes, yes, and yes. But I have a lot of really good friends down here who have been working on all these movies. I got to meet Taika Waititi through a friend who'd worked with him on Thor Ragnarok, which was one of the highlights of my life. And he also, my friend, worked on Black Panther, so he got an invite to the crew screening and premiere in Atlanta, and invited me along. And I was like, well, why not? So we went to see the movie in Atlanta last Wednesday. I don't remember the exact date, but it was packed. Obviously, the line was wrapped around the block, and it was just, you could feel the buzz and the energy. It was so exciting, and then it kind of reached a whole other level. We had a couple introductions from a couple guys. Like, I think there was the president of the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association, was there. There was one of the head producers of the Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of giving a speech, and then they shut down all the lights. They played an introduction video from Ryan Coogler, who was just like, thank you to all the crew, thank you everybody for your hard work in doing this. And then the video went off. It was complete darkness. And then a photo of Samuel L. Jackson appeared on the screen, and when they brought up the lights, there was the man himself standing on stage. And I wish somebody caught the tail end of his speech on video, and I wish someone had just gotten the reaction, because it was like something like it was like an explosion. Like for I don't know for how long, but it felt like for a full minute people were just losing their minds. And he gave this really great speech about like this movie, you know, it's the most marvelous Marvel movie. But he also had this nice little moment where he was like, you know, there have been some great movies, but this is really the first one that has been made for us. And obviously the audience was predominantly Black African American. It was very. This movie was made for them.
Well,
so
I mean, this movie is so unique, right? Because it's the first one to the first major modern superhero movie to have pretty much an all African American cast, and it was pretty much an all African American crew too.
Yeah, so it was the energy of seeing it with that audience. There were a ton of young kids from schools in the area that had come out to see. It was just very exciting, and it was really. Living the movie through their reactions was really the highlight of that experience for me. But yeah, so that was how I see it. I saw it again. My wife didn't get to see it at that screening, but we saw it again on Friday, and it was nice to kind of again see it again, kind of bring balance to kind of see where I fall on the spectrum of how much I enjoyed it. But so let's just dive into it. And Matt, we'll start with you again. What do you think of Black Panther? Just initial reaction to it.
Okay, well, I feel like the dreaded O word is going to get thrown around a lot in the next few weeks, or maybe even on this call, and that being overhyped. But that being said, it's having seen it twice now. I remained firm. I've now, because I think I published my ranking of Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff up from Letterboxd after I saw it the first time, and it's now number 4 on my list. So
nice.
It's really high up there, and I was just expecting to have a good time at this because, you know, not to sound like I'm, you know, racially biased or whatever, but you know, my favorite, my number one movie for anticipating this year is Infinity War, so I was like, oh, Black Panther's gonna be a fun, you know, appetizer on the way to Infinity War. But I have to give it a lot of credit. It was just very captivating, and what's really cool is that I think audiences were so ready for this movie that watching it with a packed crowd is just really fun. And I'll say this much as someone who didn't dislike this other movie. This Black Panther is a much more exciting James Bond movie than Spectre was.
I will agree with you there. Lee, what are your initial reactions to Black Panther?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I wasn't blown away, and it's one of those ones I've almost feel like I've listened to quite a few podcasts and sort of read some initial reactions, and it almost feels like my opinion. It's ignore it almost. And I listened to, you know, there was I think it was the Little White Lies podcast who have a bizarre stance on many superhero movies. You know, the movies we all expect to be considered great and get good reviews, they end up slating, and a movie like Fantastic Four, also starring Michael B. Jordan, gets rated incredibly high.
Oh no!
And I was listening to their critic. You know, it was a black critic, and he was talking about how I went to see this movie and he found it incredibly emotional to watch. You know, and he wanted to bring his cousins, his uncles, everyone along, and he was so blown away by the representation that he was after being in this film. And it was all the little touches that I think would just fly over our head, where he was like, you know, there was a scene where they're wearing a kind of like shawl, something along those lines, and he was like, I was looking at that on screen, and that was my tribe that I descended from in Africa. That was their shawl. And there was so many little bits where it was like the effort and to go into that, where for even probably 99% of most viewers, whatever background they come from, probably would have looked at it and gone, oh, okay. But for so many other people, it was just little moments where like, oh, they've that's right, that's my tribe there. And it wasn't just sort of, and I think that's where, you know, Matt was saying it's a predominantly black crew, and I think that's reflected in the level and attention to detail. It's not just representing, you know, a comic book, they're representing a way of life that is real to many people, and I think that it's crossed over the boundaries from, you know, comic book to real life. It's beautifully merged it, the fact that so many people are having those moments. So I'm really happy, you know. I thought the film was good, you know, fine, but that doesn't matter. I think the larger thing is that it's had this resonance, and that can only be a good thing in my eyes.
I'm just like, my whole position on the thing is that, you know, of course none of us are African American, and, you know, we have different views of the film than, you know, its target audience. But that being said, you know, whatever things we have to say about this movie, it can't be understated how important it is, and how and, you know, at no point, I think, do any of us want to take away the impact that it has for many people, because, I mean, it's really clicking here, not just with black audiences, with everyone, but there's just this overabundance, not overabundance because it's not like it's a bad thing, but there's this abundance of enthusiasm that, Shawn, I mean, like, you and I live here in America, I rarely see this kind of sort of like cultural movement where, you know, you have African American celebrities like Octavia Spencer renting out theaters for kids, for inner city kids to see this film, and it's just like, I think it should be plainly stated that none of us want to take away from the impact of this film, because, like, I think we all realize how important this is to people.
Well, speak for yourself, Matt. I want to take away everything because I hate everyone. No, I couldn't agree more. I think my first screening, I mean, I can't even begin to describe how. I mean, it's going to be one of my favorite screenings, I think, that I've ever been to. But just the energy, and you could feel it. I mean, there's a lot of there are nuggets of truth in this movie where I know Sterling K. Brown early on. I can't remember the line, or not early on, but he has this moment where he says, you know, our people are suffering. They're over policed. They're undereducated, and the audience went nuts. You know, it's like it was so apparent to me that I was like, all right, I'm having an experience with this movie, and my experience pales in comparison to just the sheer enthusiasm and being able to be a black person and to hear these things of truth being broadcast on such a wide scale. And again, it's Ryan Coogler, I think, said it best, where he's like, you know, I love Spider-Man, and he's like, I love Captain America, I love these guys, and I love superheroes, but you know, you grow up and you're like, where's the one who looks like me? And you don't get that. And seeing it with an audience, being so close to these young kids looking up to Black Panther and finally getting a hero like T'Challa and all this amazing cast around him, that was really wonderful to experience. The movie itself, I'm with Lee. I enjoyed it. It falls into right in the middle as far as where I would rank it with the other Marvel movies. It's a solid action movie. It's got a great cast, and it's got an incredible vision. There's just so much culture, and it's teeming with just beautiful scenery, beautiful moments, and I liked it. It didn't blow me away. I have some qualms with the story and some of the character stuff that I'm sure we'll get into as we talk more. But I did enjoy it, and we'll just kind of dive in a little bit as far as things that really worked for you with this movie. The things that, without question, you're like, yes, that was awesome. How do you feel about it? Lee, we'll start with you.
Yeah, for me, what I think's the best thing is I almost have my feeling with Black Panther is he's like a character at this stage that I enjoy, and I think I really am a big fan of Chadwick Boseman. But the Black Panther character is not one that particularly blows me away. I find him, he's quite a stoic character. He's he's very interesting, but I think he's at his best, and I think it's the same with Civil War, when he's surrounded by other characters, and I think the characters that are around him really bring it out. And I like the ensemble nature of the crew, the family and his country, and I just, all the characters around him, just like, they were so exciting, you know, the young sister, his generals, and, you know, it's just his relationship with people. I found that so exciting to watch that aspect of it, that teamwork and the character actors that they chose to fill this cast with, it was really, really excellent. And I enjoyed, I really was quite impressed with, in particular, probably the boldness of some of the political angles that they were talking about. That this black uprising against white oppression, and at times I was having to pinch myself, thinking, like, is this a Disney movie? And whether that was the bad guy's motivation or not, it's very well debated and discussed, and it's one of those things you're listening thinking, well, yeah, I could see an argument made for doing something like that. So I give full props to Disney for having the how should I put it, the Infinity Stones to go through with it.
I'm with you. It is funny. I feel like Black Panther in this movie kind of reminds me of how I felt about Captain America or Thor in any of their Phase 1 movies, where I was like, I just don't really care. But when you see him in a team environment working with other people, it's different. And I'm interested to see where the sequels go as far as taking his character, because, like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the first Captain America or the first Thor, but Captain America Winter Soldier for me was like, wow, that completely blew me away. I really hope as this franchise goes on, they bring a little bit more to the table as far as T'Challa.
I'm anticipating that, because this movie is such a breakout hit and because people are responding to this character so well, I think you could already get a taste of it in the trailer, but I'm willing to bet he's going to have a nice, juicy part in Infinity War.
I think so. They're definitely. It almost feels like, are they going to do a little bit of reshooting like they did with Wonder Woman and Justice League, where they kind of arbitrarily were like, let's just add a Wonder Woman scene and make sure that we get more of her.
I don't know if it's the climax, because I have no idea how that film's going to go, but we already know from the trailer, like, reshoots may not even be needed, because the trailer shows that, like, a significant portion of this is going to take place outside of Wakanda.
Yeah. So I'm kind of. I feel the same way, Lee. It was tough to engage with T'Challa as a character. It was hard for me. I loved Chadwick Boseman. I thought he was great, but it almost was like I didn't connect with him as strongly. I didn't know if he had a strong emotional arc, and a lot of what brings the emotion to him comes about halfway through the movie, when he discovers Eric's true identity, Killmonger's true identity, and where he comes from. And then it became much more interesting to me. But Matt, what about this movie really worked for you?
So I'm gonna, I just want to say that I give the character of Black Panther, I think, a little bit more credit than both of you, and again, not trying to bring the cultural impact into it, but the way I see it is that we have so many of these movies with African American characters in it who are for lack of a better term, please forgive me, the shucking and jiving comic relief. So it's nice to see that, we're fighting against that stereotype of the crazed enthusiastic black guy, where, I compare T'Challa and Black Panther a lot to, like, someone like Obama, who, may not be the most interesting person in the world, but he's smart, he's reserved, and he's a natural leader. And so right. I think that, I think that's important to show.
Andy Serkis is I was going to say Andy Serkis is basically the crazy stereotypical black character in this movie.
Right.
That's what I wanted. That's what I needed.
Yeah. No, but I'm just saying, I think it's important that, it may not make for the most exciting portion of this movie, but I think it's important to show T'Challa that way. And now that we've introduced him as the king, I think he's destined for great things in future movies. And speaking of future movies, of course, after seeing this film, I'm looking forward to Black Panther 2. But what I'd be really down for is just the Women Warriors of Wakanda movie spinoff.
Absolutely,
because the thing
that was a highlight for me.
One of the true highlights for me is just we talk about representation. We get an African American cast, but the African American female cast in this film is something else. And I will watch a whole movie of the Dora Milaje and Nakia and Shuri having their own adventure.
Yeah, give Letitia Wright her own movie because I completely agree. I think she stole the show as his sister Shuri.
Right.
I absolutely loved her, and she brings a whole different energy to their relationship to the movie. She's great.
And I just want to see her. I don't know if she's in Infinity War, but I just want to see her in a room with Tony Stark talking tech.
That would be amazing. And I think the biggest thing this movie does that I think is its greatest accomplishment is it feels personal, and it feels in the midst of all the CG craziness and the excitement, there's a strong culture to it. It feels very much like it has an identity, which is hard to do. I mean, we're 18 movies into a long-running franchise, and to be completely frank, this franchise has not always necessarily stood out as having the strongest vision from movie to movie. That is maybe one of the drawbacks of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is because it's so episodic, because there are so many of them, they all kind of start to blend together.
That being said, though, I feel like this particular phase 3, they've really fought against that. I mean,
yeah,
when your most formulaic quote unquote movies are Doctor Strange and Guardians 2, and both of those are still unique. Like, I feel like phase 3 has become, dare I say, a lot more director focused than the other two phases. And now that Kevin Feige's in charge, I think he's getting directors and letting them do their thing.
Right, and that's the most exciting thing, is that, you can knock the MCU, but there is a sense of genuine creative. There is a lot of creativity to it, and there are directors coming and bringing their visions. I think you saw it with Thor Ragnarok, with Taika coming in and bringing his unique sensibilities.
Look at you on first-time basis with him as well. You met him
I know,
one time.
Taika, we're besties. Guys, did I mention
the amount of name
did I mention I met him?
on.
Did I mention I met Taika, and did I mention that I saw this movie with Samuel L. Jackson?
And then Samuel L. Jackson recruited you into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We know.
Really, I burst into tears. He made me an honorary black person, and then I was subsequently stripped of that title,
right,
almost immediately.
It's
true.
I'm sure the listeners have already stripped you of that title just for making that comment. but yeah, Thor is undeniably, or Thor Ragnarok, I'll just be specific, is undeniably like a Taika Waititi movie. And, there are parts Black Panther's Ryan Coogler movie, no doubt, but there's parts, especially in the action and the way things are shot, is like, there he is, there's Ryan. I recognize him.
The scene, especially in the Skyfall club, because I'm not gonna lie, that looked exactly like Skyfall. But that action scene where the camera's kind of moving up.
Well, it's the same thing he did
between the two levels.
It's the same thing he did in Creed with Creed's first fight, where it's a one take of the action, where it goes from level to level. It's on one take. I was like, there's Ryan Coogler. It's undeniably his movie.
I think you can see the cuts if you're watching, like I tend to do when I'm like, okay, it's a single cut, but how did they hide the cuts? Apparently, the first Creed fight, the first boxing match, is a legitimate one shot. Yeah. Whereas with this, they had to kind of they fibbed it a little bit, but it doesn't dilute the effectiveness of the sequence. Yeah, it's it's really awesome. I could be wrong. I would have argued before I read interviews to the contrary that the Creed fight, that was probably had some hidden cuts in there as well, but apparently it didn't. Maybe this one didn't as well. But that was the first one where that's really for me where the movie started to pick up, because I felt like the first 30 minutes are slow or very slow. Or not very slow, but it was hard to kind of. It was kind of doling out information very slowly. You're kind of introducing characters. Not a whole lot of consequences happening. The plot's not really moving forward. But that second act, once that kind of they confront Andy Serkis's character, who I don't remember his name. Sorry,
Ulysses
Andy.
Claw.
Claw. That's where the movie really started to take off for me.
Well, I think for me, like I felt with the Killmonger stuff, like while we had him in the first stretch of the movie, just sort of in the background with his good scene in the London Museum, I kind of was a bit frustrated. I was like, I'd love to have seen, sort of those motivations just kind of kicking in a little bit early. Like, I think you could easily have been forgiven in the first act for thinking, oh, this is going to be a Ulysses Claw sort of he's going to be the bad guy, and then it sort of comes out of left field going, oh, actually it's all about that guy that was involved at the museum. And I would have liked to have seen perhaps just a bit more focus on getting his story kind of up and running, but I think when his motivation, when that becomes clear, I think it certainly kicks the movie into sort of the next level.
That's kind of the funny thing, right? Is because unbeknownst to us, his story is already up and running at this point. We see it in the opening. We just don't know that that's him yet.
Yeah.
What I will say about the first 3 minutes is, yes, it's very exposition heavy and it's kind of setting up everything, but one thing I really want to compliment this movie on, and it's getting compared to Wonder Woman, but quite frankly, I don't care if my bias is showing. I think this does it better. Looking at the world that they set up for Wakanda and the culture they set up, I feel like it's so rich and it's so detailed that I was actually it was almost like, and I'm not trying to make this seem like some sort of like hoity-toity or an insult. It was almost like watching a documentary or a National Geographic special on this culture, and I felt like they tried to do that with Wonder Woman, but again, I think there wasn't that much beyond that there's this culture of women warriors that are hidden. Here I felt that we set up who there's different tribes, and this is how they do the change of power when it comes to for the king, and these decisions are made in this council, and I feel like I got so much information on this culture that doesn't exist, but like I feel like after watching the first 3 minutes, it felt real to me, and I thought that was really important.
That was something that stood out about this movie to me as well, is it felt very lived in. It felt like a culture that existed and had its own life outside of the movie, and that was really impressive to me, just the world building and making that believable. And to speak to Lee's point, I think one of my biggest problems with the movie was Killmonger in general. I agree with Matt. I was hoping watching a second time that I'd feel it was a little bit more enriched, like knowing that was his father and knowing that he was the kid watching the spaceship go. But the problem is the audience is given no hints of that. Even like the first time you watch it, you're given no hints of that. And the second time I watched it, just watching it from a storytelling standpoint, you have this guy kind of coming in. There's no obvious connection between him and T'Challa, and then they kind of reveal it about halfway through. And to me, like with Lee, it became much more interesting once you reveal who Killmonger is, what his relationship is, what it means for T'Challa, and how that affects T'Challa's view of his father, and what this culture that they've spent so much time building up and they've been keeping the world out, and now he realizes how much it's backfired against him. But it felt like part of me, I was talking with my wife Sarah about it, I was like, man, how effective. I think what they did is they wanted to go for the twist. They wanted to kind of have a little twist halfway through to kind of, oh, what's going on here? This is a surprise to have Killmonger revealed as a descendant of Wakanda, and that he is a rightful heir to the throne, or at least has a call to the throne and can stake his claim. But I felt like they should have gotten rid of having that impact of the twist and built him up a little bit in the beginning. And one way I was thinking maybe they could have done that is maybe you start with the same scene that the movie opens with, but then you kind of have maybe a little montage of Eric growing up and him fighting the fight and trying to basically just find his way through life and his struggles. I felt like I needed a little bit more of that, because when it comes in halfway through the movie, they throw a lot of information at you. That's all of a sudden like, yeah, I'm a descendant and I want the throne and I want to rule everybody and I want to do, and it was like, wait, what about Andy Serkis? Is he dead? I love Andy Serkis. Where did he go? But it was tough for me getting on board so late. I thought he had great motivations. I thought he was a strong character and I believed what he was doing, but it was tough, and especially because I think as much as I love Michael B. Jordan, he plays the guy kind of one note. He's kind of like, yeah, I hate all of you, and it was hard I
think it's one of their stronger villains, and quite frankly, for a company that's been accused of having a villain problem, really, I think ever since Daniel Bruhl in Civil War, they've really taken great steps to correct that. I mean, I think arguably maybe their weakest is Doctor Strange, but even then it's still miles better than what it used to be. And I never considered this, but it's kind of ironic how in Phase 3 the theme of the villains has somehow to do with family. Because Zemo is doing the things in Civil War because he lost his family, and then you've got Kurt Russell in Volume 2, and then you've got Michael Keaton, who's Spider-Man's girlfriend's dad in Homecoming, and then Hela is Thor's sister. And
that's true. I didn't even think about that. I mean, it definitely. I wonder how that's going to play out maybe in Infinity War, where it's like we have this massive family of superheroes, and are we going to see some dissonance? But Lee, how do you as far as you kind of talked a little bit about Killmonger, was it just the fact that they didn't introduce really his relationship to the character halfway through that made it kind of not work as well for you?
Yeah, I just, because I thought like when it kind of kicks in, it's like, that all clicks in really well with like the prologue scene, and I thought it was, and his anger and what he wants to do, as I kind of touched on earlier, I thought was quite bold and very brave of kind of Disney and the writers to pursue, and I found that like I wanted a bit more of that. Like I just was like, I'm really happy with like where it's kind of going from here, sort of the middle onwards. I just would have liked if it just sort of had been a bit fleshed out in the beginning, just sort of as you kind of brilliantly put, just kind of build up those kind of relationships. Don't make it almost like a twist. Just have it kind of be something where this is the villain almost. Don't try and outsmart the audience. Just treat it like how we had it used to probably be in so many of the 90s superhero movies, where we've got our superhero's origin, which seems to be kind of well balanced with our villain's origin, and you both see kind of each other just sort of getting built up. I would like to have seen that personally, and I thought I just wanted a bit more of Michael B. Jordan personally.
Yeah, I think he was a great performance here.
Oh yeah,
I liked him. There was something about him, and it became more glaring to me the second time around. It felt like everything he said was always like, I'm going to burn it all down. And he kind of says it with the same inflection every time. Like everything is like, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. But he has this really, I think I think part of that is a byproduct of the fact that we don't really get this information doled out through the movie. And the first half of the movie, until we learn about this, it's hard to see what's driving the story, what's driving the characters emotionally. And the movie really starts to work when they give you that emotional connection, and it started to become more engaging to me. But it was hard to it's hard to sympathize or to feel sympathy for a character who's so angry and will kill his girlfriend and will just kind of sit on the throne and be like, we're going to kill everybody.
Yeah, he's going
all right.
He's going about it the wrong way, but once you find out his backstory, like he's a character that was wronged so badly. And what I think, again, I don't have the same kind of structural problems as you guys have, and the way I looked at it is that we may not have gotten much of his backstory, but I feel like his is a backstory we've seen before. And I think B, the central conflict of this movie, besides his wanting to ascend to the throne or take the throne, is, I think it's important that we focused, the movie focused the way that it did on Black Panther and really the nation of Wakanda itself, because Lee, you and I are Star Trek fans, and it feels like one of the central conflicts of this movie kind of was like a prime directive thing. We needed to see how good Wakanda had it and how advanced and technologically privileged they were, because one of the conflicts of this movie and one of the things that Michael B. Jordan's character talks about is like, no, like we need to be running the country, we need to be running the world. Like we have so much, we could do so much, that I feel like that wouldn't have been, that theme for me wouldn't have worked as much if we hadn't taken the time to look at the culture and look at how good they have it. I mean, my God, we see the cars they drive during the car chase. Halfway through this movie, Martin Freeman gets an injury that would normally leave him paralyzed that they're able to fix. So, like, it's important to me at least that we see how good they have it, so that when this conflict arises and this prime directive question comes up, it makes for a much more, to me, I think, interesting debate in how they handle this sort of thing.
And I think what I found quite interesting as well with it was that we have these characters, and I can almost appreciate why he's so kind of blasé, like, I'm going to tear it all down, because like no one wants him to be there really. He's indulged somewhat with like things, and he just comes in and he's just like, I don't care that you guys don't want me here, and I think he
burn the heart-shaped plan. I don't care about your culture.
He's just like it almost just feels like he's flipping them off with every choice.
Well, and he's so he's so dismissed by the council when he gets there. I mean, like, even T'Challa says the only reason I'm letting you, I don't kill you where you stand is because you're related to us, and right. But like you have even Angela Bassett there is like, throw his ass out, like he's an outsider, he's nobody.
Lee, did you want to elaborate a little bit more?
No. I think that kind of just sort of summed up for me. Just that I thought he was, it was like, I can get why he acted that way, and I mean he only really had kind of the one ally, and Get Out. So his name's just gonna skip my mind completely.
Daniel Kaluuya.
And I almost had it in my head that this movie was like a semi-sequel to Get Out. That in this movie we see that he's very angry and he's all for this plan to sort of overthrow the white people of the planet and kind of go with this Wakanda army. And it's like, well, man, I don't blame you. I just saw you nearly sold off as a slave by some brainwashing white people. Basho, and I just had this in my head the whole time. I was like, that's just a semi-sequel to Get Out.
I think it's what, as many problems as I had with the character of Killmonger, there's a really beautiful moment between him and T'Challa at the end when T'Challa finally defeats him, kills him, or mortally wounds him, and then brings him up to see the Wakanda sunset that he'd heard about as a kid. So really, it was a very touching, very affecting moment. And then you kind of add the cherry on top with him saying, don't bury me in Wakanda, throw me in the ocean with my ancestors, because they knew death was better than slavery. And you're like, damn, Ryan Coogler in a Disney movie, he got his point across. That to me was a highlight of the movie. I'm wondering, what were your guys' favorite scenes in Black Panther? Well, Matt, we'll start with you.
I mean, that casino scene is something else. And the subsequent car chase, that's when I think I had the most fun. Really, any time that the women were on the screen, like I said, if I will take, I'm certainly looking forward to Black Panther 2, and I can't wait, and I hope Coogler comes back, but I will take a movie led by Denai Guerrera, Lupita Nyong'o, and Letitia Wright. Like, I am there for that movie. Anytime any one of those three is on the screen, I'm engaged, and what I like about this movie too is that, I loved humor in Marvel movies has never been a problem for me, really. And you have movies that are more funny, like Thor Ragnarok, and then you have movies that are super serious, like Winter Soldier, that has little instances of fun. This, to me, was more on the Winter Soldier side. But when the comedy did come in, it was scene appropriate, I would say.
Yeah, it was very organic, and I think especially,
I mean, my biggest laugh is when Martin Freeman kind of like taps T'Challa on the shoulder, and Denai Guerrera gives this look, and she says in I think it's Swahili, I want to say it's Swahili, if he touches you again, I'm going to impale his head on this desk right here.
I think my favorite, one of the biggest laughs the movie got from the audience was the Q scene where Shuri is taking him through and showing him his new gadgets, and then at the very end when he knocks himself on his back and he goes, delete that recording. That was one of my favorite moments.
I'll take it back. Like, one of my biggest laughs of this movie too is when during the car chase, Andy Serkis destroys the car that Denai Guerrera and Lupita Nyong'o are in, and Denai Guerrera does this like really cool surfing down the road just to catch her balance, and then you see Lupita Nyong'o still in the driver's seat that's exploded with the steering wheel that's not attached to anything, just comes sliding behind her.
That was great. Lee, what about you? What are some highlights for you?
For me, it's pretty much anytime Shuri, I'm still saying that correctly, anytime she appears on screen, I thought she was fantastic, and I particularly liked the line where it's like, does she speak English? Only when she wants to. And I think that's another one. I'm sure, like, I think when I was listening to the interview with the review from the Black Critic, and he was like, that's a line that you can imagine like some people in the audience would have maybe thought, I bet I've said that once before, or something along those lines. And I just thought it was a really good line. And anytime she was on the screen, I mean, I think it's almost like with the actress's name I forget from Spider-Man. Is it Zendaya?
Zendaya.
Yeah.
Zelda, yes.
Zendaya.
Her name is Zelda.
Yeah, who plays...
She's the Princess of Hyrule.
Yeah, and she's almost one of those ones, like, now you sort of see, like, after Spider-Man, she seems to be popping up in all these different movies and roles, and I get the impression that Letitia Wright is going to be one of these actresses that's now just going to find her, you know, you could probably go onto her IMDb right now and it's going, name clicks on this up, like, 1,000%. I think she's going to go on to be a star.
Hey, no,
Oh, she's great.
I'm just saying, when Ben Whishaw gets tired of playing Q, just hire her, and we'll have the first female Q. Because she's British too.
Yeah, she is. Yeah,
Is she?
yeah.
All right, she's my new celebrity crush. I loved her in this movie. She's one of my favorite parts of the movie. I'm with Matt. I loved the casino scene. I loved the car chase that followed. That gave the movie a real burst of energy. I loved their ritual combat for the throne.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. And another really great highlight of the movie that I missed, my second screening, the audience wasn't as enthusiastic, which was a shame. But there's this great moment where when they're approaching, I can't remember, it's the Gorilla King, the Gorilla Kingdom.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name,
M'Baku.
but they approach him for help. Yeah. They approach him for help, and Martin Freeman's like, "Your Majesty," and then they start hooting at him, and then he goes, "You do not speak here!" And the first time I saw it, the audience lost their minds because, again, how many movies have they had to sit through where the black person is constantly like, no, us whiteys, we got this. So that was such a great moment.
Yeah.
Because beyond, I'm sure there was an undercurrent of that. I don't think that was the purpose of it to
Well,
be
I
like,
mean,
oh, shut up, white
no,
man.
but
But
no,
there is
there-
a
but
really
there-
funny kind of commentary.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, there is, and I think that's intentional. It's the same thing when Okoye says, like, oh, does she speak English? Only when she wants to. I'm telling you, both times I saw this with an audience, everyone reacted like it was like an oh snap kind of moment.
Oh, that's great. There something else I want to talk about is the soundtrack. This has such a unique soundtrack, and Kendrick Lamar, who I think To Pimp a Butterfly is one of the great albums of all time, and I'm such a huge fan, and I was very excited to see his involvement with it. Have you guys had a chance to listen to the soundtrack?
I need to get
fans of
I
it?
need to get this soundtrack because I loved it whenever like a song came on, and I'm assuming that's on the Kendrick Lamar soundtrack. But I also want to give a big shout out to, and I'm going to butcher his name. Is it Ludwig Göransson?
That's probably as good as any of us could have pronounced it.
Anyway, same composer that he used for Creed. I love the instrumental score to this movie. Like this is one of the few times where like sitting through the end credits to get to the two post-credit scenes was a joy because you get to hear the soundtrack from both Kendrick Lamar and Ludwig Göransson, and it's I think it's one of their better scores.
Yeah, it had again, one of the things that stands out about Black Panther is its strong culture and identity, and the score totally reflects that, and it's a beautiful score. Lee, how do you feel about Kendrick Lamar?
I'll be honest, I probably have heard him perform or something on radio, but I'm not a big like radio listener. I tend to be more of a podcast listener or kind of music to sort of run to. So based on what I heard in this score, I definitely need to make more of an effort. I feel most of my friends are big fans of it, so I feel like I'm behind the times on this one.
How do you feel about this super well-known hip-hop artist, pasty white Scottish guy?
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely, maybe I'll get an addition to my running playlist, and in a way, isn't that the greatest honor it can get?
I'd say so. I mean, absolutely. But there's one more thing I want to discuss, and this is maybe going to be the most controversial thing in this relatively controversial review in general, but something I want to discuss, and it's going to be interesting to come back to this. We talked a bit about this at the beginning, and I'm interested to get your guys' hot takes, but this movie has an insane critical reception. It's the best reviewed superhero movie of all time. If you're looking at it from a number standpoint, the audiences love it. People adore this movie. That being said, do you think the critical reception is an honest reflection of the film quality itself? or do you think people are getting a little too on board the cultural train and they're admiring and celebrating what this movie does culturally and from a social perspective versus the actual quality of the film itself?
See, I think this is a dangerous conversation, and I'll tell you why. Not that I don't think it's an appropriate question, but at the same time, we kind of skate into the territory of coming across sounding like, calm down, black people, it wasn't that good. You know, it just I don't want to say that, and you know, the 97% on Rotten Tomatoes doesn't mean that it's a near perfect movie. It just means that like the 97% of the critics who saw it liked it, right? So I mean, if you look at the
we have to also acknowledge the fact that yes, but with Metacritic, this film, which is a little bit more accurate in terms of rating how critics feel about it, this has an 88.
Right.
Like this is, people are not just scoring it as like, Doctor Strange has a 90% and people, you know, a lot of those reviews are like 3 out of 5 stars where they're like, it was fine and it counts as a positive review. This movie is technically, people are calling it a masterpiece. They're scoring it the highest score you can possibly give it. So there is a little bit of a difference there.
There is, but I like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the average score for on Metacritic and the average score on Rotten Tomatoes, I think Dark Knight is still technically quote unquote higher. So I think you know, we can sit here and debate about whether the praise is too high or whatever, but I just feel like it's a conversation that I necessarily don't want to get into that much, only because I feel like whatever things you have to say about the critics' reaction to this movie, it's not like it's totally undeserved. I mean, I think what Ryan Coogler and the you know, cast and crew managed to accomplish here is really something special, and I, you know, for me, I personally, I don't think it's my place to like say that, well, you're being a little too enthusiastic about this movie. It, you know, if it touches people that way, and clearly it does, you know, who am I to say that that's wrong? So
sure. Lee, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is hard to say. I think it's almost one of these things that I think the high ratings is, I think it's almost natural that it will sort of come down a little bit here and there. I mean, it's no Paddington 2, which deserves a ridiculously high rating, but I think it's one of these things. Sometimes, there probably is a mixture of both, and I think that can be allowed, where people are reviewing a film and like the film can be decent, good, but if it does something perhaps unique, and this idea of, you know, the first black superhero movie and all that it means to so many people and all that it can potentially inspire, then I think that does add something to the reviews. That I'm more of a fan of like reviews personally when it is that a bit personal. It's not just like detached from it going, well, this film works because of A, B, and C. It's like, well, this film kind of, you know, taking into account perhaps the social side of it, and I think in time it will be, maybe there'll be a bit of a you know, it might come down a little bit, but I mean, I personally don't get too hung up on reviews and Rotten Tomatoes scores, and you know, they're both nice for people when they have it, but you know, I think sometimes my only issue sometimes is when it gets a little silly for things like, I think when it was like with Wonder Woman, where it was like, why has Wonder Woman been snubbed for the Oscars for like Best Picture, right, and for things like that, and,
and like, I'm not saying,
well, you know, the film's a good, you know, popcorn movie, but
it didn't deserve any Oscars.
And it'd be the same if that was that kind of chat for this movie here, I would be like, nah.
And I wouldn't say that this is like deserving of Oscars. I would say that I think that if anything, I hope this gets an Oscar nod for art direction, because I think just everything looks beautiful in this film. But that being said, no, I don't think it's Best Picture worthy. But at the same time, like I said, if it touches people, if it's important to people, if people are just loving it because it's a good time, then, you know, who am I to disagree? Or say that you're being too enthusiastic. Why don't you calm down a little bit? You know, it's just a ridiculous statement to make, personally. But you know, I understand why we have to have the conversation.
Right. And it's funny, I was having a conversation with another Nerd Party member, John Mills, who you can find on Great Shot Kid, and he's also on Aggressive Negotiations, and he does Words with Nerds with Craig Sorrell, who is also a beautiful man. But we kind of talked about the reaction to this film, and Lee, you brought up Wonder Woman, and it felt like Wonder Woman was another good example of a film that was representing kind of a demographic that felt a little marginalized, it felt a little underappreciated, and really bringing it to the forefront. And that's the reason I thought to ask and to talk about it, because Wonder Woman to me felt like the same thing, where we had a perfectly fine movie that, because of its social aspects, was getting really pushed ahead. Like, why isn't it Best Picture? Why isn't it that? And it was interesting to me. And I feel like there is an element of that to Black Panther, while at the same time there is kind of something to celebrate there. I just wonder, does celebrating the cultural aspects of a movie overwhelm the critical thought process that allows you to say, yeah, it does have its problems?
It might, but at the same time, I feel like, again, this is my bias showing, but I don't give a damn.
It's all right. It's all about our biases.
What this movie managed to do that I feel like Wonder Woman didn't is, Wonder Woman was this, the hype around it, I felt like was just stemmed from the fact that it was the first female-led superhero movie that didn't suck. And it's true. It's one of the few that didn't. But like I said, for me, like going into the background and touching upon the female themes, it's like it gave lip service to it, but it's really, you go back to that movie and the Themyscira is really not that well defined, beyond the fact that there's a bunch of warrior women, and the supporting cast in that movie isn't nearly as interesting as the supporting cast in this one.
I agree, yeah.
But whereas here, I feel like some of the enthusiasm is a little bit hits better for me than it did for Wonder Woman, because, like I said, there is that cultural aspect to it where they take the time to build this world. And they take the time to, this is the first time we go to Africa and we see, native Africans there, and they're not treated like the savages or stereotypes, or they're behind the times. Instead, they have still embraced their traditions, they still have embraced their culture, but they've also embraced advancements in technology and intelligence and stuff like that. So I really feel like, as a cultural experience, maybe this makes me a sexist, maybe this makes me a biased, whatever. But I feel like this one did more culturally well, setting up why this is unique than Wonder Woman did. But that's just me.
I think
for me, it's like I have no issue with reviews that perhaps maybe a bit more critical, or reviews that are like, that show their colours on the thing, going like, as a black man, like I was talking about that review I learned to, like, I loved it for this and this. Like, I don't feel like all reviews need to follow sort of a certain line. Like, there's plenty of space and chat for everything, where someone can go, well, I think this is a bit critical, or I think this is a bit great. There's always voices that always shout a bit louder either way. But like, if you're into it as a black listener or man, and you want to go, right, this is what I was looking for, or whether you're someone that's like, well, I enjoyed the movie and I want to know why it's resonating for some other people, or this is why I liked it. Like, there's space for everything, and that's okay.
I agree with you, Lee, and I also think this, if anything, this filibuster episode proves how quickly three white dudes can back themselves into a corner when talking about issues like this. But I guess, we've gone all over the movie. We've talked a little about what we love, what we didn't love. I guess the last thing to do is to just rate it on a scale of 1 to 5, and our rating system will be how many of Michael B. Jordan's awesome hairstyles would you give this movie on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest. Lee, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, these things are always difficult, because it's hard to rate a Marvel movie in isolation, as try as I hard. So I'd probably put this as a 3, and I don't want that to sound like it's overly negative. I think it's a good Marvel movie. There was a lot I liked. There was aspects I had a bit of issues with, but it was a fine enough way to spend like a Tuesday evening, and that was fine. It's not in the top tier with perhaps Winter Soldier and Civil War, for example, But I really liked it, and it certainly got me excited for Infinity War, and I'm looking forward to seeing him, amongst a team again. So, yep, I'm happy enough with it. It's good, and with the Marvel movies, you never have long to wait. If you think one's like, well, that's a 3, it's always like a 5, perhaps, is the next one coming up. So I'm curious to see where we are come May.
What about you, Matt?
So, just in case people need to put this in perspective, listening to me for a long time with these Marvel movies, just pulling up my letterboxd, my top 5 Marvel goes...
Your litterbox? You have a litterbox.
Letterboxed.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
My top 5 go Winter Soldier, Civil War, Avengers 1, Black Panther, and First Avenger. So, after this film, it's leapt into my top 5, and... having seen it a second time, I feel comfortable for it staying there, because whatever faults it may or may have narratively, I think that I just had a genuinely great time with this film, and I think that it has for me, I enjoyed it even more my second time round. So I think that this film is going to age well too, and be better with rewatches. So I'm going to give it, at this point, having seen it twice, a solid 4 out of 5. But I could see myself going to a 4.5.
Nice. I'd go ahead. I'd probably rate it a 3 out of 5 as well, and I enjoyed it. It didn't knock me on my booty, but there's a lot to love and appreciate. I loved the cultural aspects. I love how 18 movies into this franchise, we can get something that feels so fresh and so much like a personal expression. I really hope Ryan Coogler comes back. I know it's tough with these kinds of movies to think of it. Not every director can end up being a Rian Johnson and getting their own trilogy, but I'm a little bummed he didn't come back for Creed 2, and I'd be a little bummed if he didn't come back for the second Black Panther. But I love this world. I think it's going to be really exciting to see where they take it, and it really carves out a unique area in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I hope they can kind of explore in isolation and not have to feel like they have to connect it all the time to the universe.
It is too bad that he didn't come back for Creed 2, but I was going to say never underestimate the power of Kevin Feige and getting him to come back.
Or money.
Yes, exactly. So both attractive things that I hope entice him to return for Black Panther.
Speaking
2.
of which, this is a film mostly in isolation, but lots of buzz and enthusiasm when, the other broken white boy that they had to fix, according to Shuri, comes back at the end of the credits, and it's Bucky.
Yes, that was wonderful. It's always a wonderful. It's the Winter Soldier. Let's be honest, he's an extremely attractive gentleman. So I always get a kick out of seeing him on screen. A bit to my wife's jealousy, but you know what? You just have to roll with the punches and deal with it and accept it. Accept my love for Bucky Barnes.
Right.
Where about you, Sean? Where do you fall on it? And obviously, your experience will be a bit of a priceless one as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that screening is that was a highlight for me, and I think that almost trumps the movie. But I think if I were to rank this, I would probably put it right in the middle of my rankings. I think Avengers is still my favorite, followed closely by Winter Soldier and Civil War, and Thor Ragnarok actually made it up really high in my top 5 just because it's so bonkers.
Same here.
See, it's getting hard to rank these things because they're all so good. I mean, like Thor Ragnarok is now my number 6, but just because it's number 6 doesn't mean I don't think it's like a 5-star film. It's
right, and it's tough because it's like Thor Ragnarok also does. It's not necessarily. There's nothing significant at stake. It's pretty much a comedy. It's a slapstick comedy.
And it's also getting hard to compare these things because, they're both in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but Black Panther is nothing like Thor Ragnarok, and Thor Ragnarok is nothing like Winter Soldier.
At the end of the day, I think that's why, as much as you can knock franchise filmmaking, as much as you can knock, Disney they own everything and everything is designed to make money, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the fact that is absolutely true, that each movie has a unique identity, that's insane. And we're not talking about they started strong and they're finishing a little weak. They started arguably weaker than they've gotten, and I feel like we're just getting more and more unique visions, and I hope they keep moving in that direction.
Like I said, I think Phase 3 for me as a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan has really been the golden age. So
yeah,
I waited with bated breath to see what happens with the White Wolf and everybody else in Infinity War.
Agreed. And I think this has been a pretty fantastic conversation. I hope everyone's been offended. I hope everyone's learned something, but I hope you all understand that we're coming from a place of love and that we love all of you. But
and that
in case anyone wants,
all of, at the end of the day, we all really loved the movie. So I mean, some of us more than others, but we all. I don't think
we all enjoyed it.
I don't think it's out of line to say all three of us recommend it.
Definitely.
Yes.
It's definitely better than 50 Shades, so if you trust me on that one.
And tune into our next filibuster episode where we'll be tearing apart 50 Shades of Grey. No, everyone, if people want to find you on social media and if you want to chat with us on Twitter or wherever, again, you can like the Facebook page, the Nerd Party. You can also follow us at Join Nerd Party on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at YayShondorman. Lee, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Filibuster most weeks. And yeah, this episode comes out either side of our looking back at the movies of Duncan Jones ahead of the movie Mute, and then we'll be back again next week to review Mute itself. So it's an exciting time for me to talk movies on Filibuster.
And what about you, Matt?
And you can find me on Twitter at mhansen0207 HANSEN talking about this movie, so many other things Marvel. I'm actually shocked that, just sort of as a non sequitur, did either of you get an Infinity War trailer in front of this? Because both times
we did, yeah.
Both times I went, I didn't, and I
didn't either.
I got the Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer, but we didn't get any Infinity War stuff, which is kind of shocking.
That's what we're all building to.
It's kind of shocking, but at the same time, if you think about it, it's like Infinity War is going to sell itself. I mean, they probably don't need a trailer to get people hyped and enthused, but I definitely am, and I think, I don't know if we officially announced it, but I feel now is as good a time as ever to kind of just preview it. We're going to be looking here on Filibuster at each of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies leading up to Infinity War, and that's going to be a real exciting time. So not just us, it's going to be a rotating list of guest hosts to look at each of the movies and break it down on the road to Infinity War.
And we're all white and nerdy. Weird Al Yankovic would approve. But I'm looking forward to it. We like Matt said, we have a bunch of people coming in, a bunch of Nerd Party people. We're going to go through every movie leading into Infinity War, which will hopefully be as wonderful and epic as we all dream it will be.
And featuring cameos from me and you, Sean, just going about our daily business as the Avengers trash our cities.
Exactly. And on that note, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you everyone for listening.
Wakanda forever.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.